Hey there, everybody. I'm trying to get caught up on the end of Roots Week 10. Missed a day yesterday, just had some things come up, so my apologies on that. So I'm going to put up two videos, one right after this one. This one's going to cover what should have been day 4, which is 1 John 4, 7 through 21. I'm just going to read kind of the beginning and end of it for you. Very good little passage here. It says, "Dear friends, let us love one another because love is from God, and everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. The one who does not love does not know God, because God is love." So kind of the theme of this week has just been loving God and loving others. And something that kind of gets missed in this conversation sometimes is that God in his very essence is love. God cannot not be loving. It's just who he is. God is always loving by his own very nature. For him to not be loving would be for him to contradict himself. He would cease to be God as we know it if he was not loving. And so that's who God is in his very nature. And so if we claim to love God, if we claim to know God, then we also have to be loving people. If we're not loving, then what that means is that we really don't know God. We really don't believe in him like we ought to. It's summed up very well in verse 20. It says, "If anyone says, 'I love God,' and yet hates his brother or sister, he is a liar. For the person who does not love his brother or sister whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen." And so, I mean, that's a very practical thing. You can't claim to love God when we can't see God, we can't touch God, or anything like that. And then hate your brother or sister who you see and interact with in everyday life. That's not possible. So basically, it's impossible for us to love God who is unseen while yet hating people who we see and who we live with in a more tangible way, so to speak. So love is from God because God is love. Therefore, if we claim to know God, we must be loving. That means we must treat people with love. We must treat them the way that we would want to be treated, not in the way that we think they deserve or judge them the way that we think they ought to be judged or to do that, but rather to treat them always the way that we would want to be treated ourselves.